number of people, and with huge thanks to Limud for loaning us their Zoom to allow us to extend beyond the 100 people, and also to all these communities coming together, particularly Leo supporting us from Liberal Judaism. We are an extraordinary crowd of folk. We're sharing it. We get, as Finchley Progressive Synagogue, this is the second year running that we have the chutzpah and the enormous nachas pride to host this Pride Shabbat and to share it with these other communities and other rabbis, and I couldn't be more delighted. I'm always struck by that line from Psalms: the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone, and so it has. This, our community, is the community of progressive Judaism, and couldn't be prouder of it. So I just want to shout out, I think there are other communities represented, but the communities that are sharing this service, leading this service, is Laviot, Keshet, Beit Klal, Yisrael, and student Rabbi Anna Posner, student Rabbi for not very long, much more actually. Leicester and Edinburgh liberal communities led by Rabbi Mark Solomon, who we see so much as the senior rabbi of this of these groups, and has always been my teacher. And lastly, FPS, Finchley Progressive Synagogue, and we're really delighted. So I invite you all. I'm hoping you're going to settle into Shabbat. We are so lucky to have student cantor Rachel Weston and her beautiful voice leading us tonight as well. I think I haven't forgotten anyone other than David Rubin, who leads, as we know. I'm going to get the new name wrong, but I know it as the Jewish Gay and Lesbian Group, but I think it's Jewish LGBT Plus now, and David is committed and devoted leader of that group. Have I forgotten anyone else? Our wonderful Peggy Sherwood, who's a member of FPS and has been part of this creation. I just want to do a couple of housekeeping points before we welcome Shabbat, settle in, enjoy this next hour we have. We are on this extraordinary Zoom that's allowing up to, well, hundreds of people, but we are also streaming onto FPS Facebook page, onto BKY Facebook page, and FPS YouTube page. It's really important that anyone who's at this service knows that whilst the streaming will be on Leo's computer, which should be always on speaker view, so only those of us who are leading the service get to be up on, get to be videoed. Just be mindful that there are other ways that you can watch if you find Zoom a little too exposing, and we really understand the sensitivity around that. So a little later, there might be a moment where a couple of people screenshot from a moment of kind of proud joy, and they will announce it so that if you don't want to be part of a screenshot, you can switch off your video. I think that's everything. I'm just looking at my little list, but I think it's everything. So really a warm welcome and Shabbat Shalom. The Siddur, the new Jewish LGBT plus Siddur, I think you all have access to. Anna, am I right that we've chosen, just want to finally check, we've chosen not to share, just because that is less enjoyable to be looking at a Siddur on the screen being managed by someone else. If you do not have the Siddur, then pop a note in chat and one of us will just copy and paste that Siddur for you to use in chat.
I'll get the link in. Oh, there it is. It's in already.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we are beginning with Hine Matov, as we should, all of us gathered together.
Good evening, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for being here. I'm coming to you from East Finchley, by the way. Welcome to my living room. This is the Hine Matov that I learnt from Rabbi Eli Tikva when I was living in Brighton 10, 15 years ago. I was studying Jewish music and also kind of coming out, and this Hine Matov is a really special one. I'm going to sing it twice, so I invite you to listen the first time, join in on the second. I can't hear you, but it's always really lovely to see people kind of with their lips moving, so I hope you'll join me. Can everybody hear my piano okay? Can you but you're great. Thank you. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת כולנו גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת כולם גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת כולם גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת כולם גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים שבת כולם גם יחד. And we'll move on to the candle lighting with members of FPS.
So I'm going to invite Tim Sena-Hannes, a member of our synagogue and dear to me, who is going to lead us in candle lighting, but that reflective moment before. But I'm going to give everyone an opportunity now to get their candles ready, to light your candles, and we can then all of us light together and Tim will lead us in the blessing. I'm seeing someone saying that we can't see the speaker. If you pop your Zoom on speaker view, then you should be able to see whoever's speaking at the time, and that should help you. So get ready to light your candles, and then Tim will lead us in that reflection.
No pressure.
No pressure, Tim.
No pressure, Rebecca.
Just give everyone a moment, but you can light your candles while you're waiting.
That assumes I have candles, yes. A good time?
Yep, looks a good time.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'chadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. And just that reflection about all of us being here, Tim.
Makol HaChayim, source of life. We are gathered together here tonight as LGBT plus Jews to celebrate Erev Shabbat and to take our rightful place in the congregation of Israel.
That kind of deserves an amen as well. Thanks, Tim. Anna.
Pleasure.
So you have to excuse the dog barking in the background. With every Chag, we always say the Shehechianu. So Chag, Pride Sameach, and this is an amazing thing that so many of us are here, 141 screens. So for being all together and for Pride, we'll say together the words of the Shehechianu. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Over to Mark.
With Yedid Nefesh, and I would just say, if you have a second device, you can find the link on that from my email. I know not everybody has a second device, and apologies to those who don't. But we'll continue with this song of spiritual love, Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh, Av HaRachaman, Meshochav Lecha, El Retzonecha, Yarutz Avdecha, Kemo Ayal, Yishtachaveh, El Mol Hadanecha, Yerav Lo Yedidotecha, Minofet Sof Vechotam, Adonai זיו העולם, נפשי חולת אהבתך. אנא אל נא רפנה לה, בהרות לה נועם זיווך, אז תתחזק ותתרפא, והייתה לה שמחת עולם, ותיק אמונה, רחמך וחוסנה על בין אהוביך. כי זה כמה נחשפתי, לראות בתפארת עוזך, אלה חמדה ליבי, וחוסנה ואל תתעלם, יגאלנה, ופרוס חביבי עלי את סוכת שלומך. תאיר ארץ מכבודך, נגילה ונשמחה בך, מהר אהוב כי במועד, וכוננו כימי עולם. יאללה לי 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 לי, יאללה לי 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 לי, לידי לי 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 לי, יאללה לי לי לי, לידי לי 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 לי, לידי לי 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 לי, לידי hi dai dai dai, la 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 la, didi hi dai dai dai, didi hi dai dai dai, didi hi dai dai dai, la 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 la, didi hi dai dai dai, didi hi dai dai dai, didi hi dai 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 dai. Hi la 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 la, didi hi dai 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 dai. Didi hi dai 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 dai, ay 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 ay, didi hi dai dai dai, didi hi dai dai dai, didi hi dai dai dai, la 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 la, didi hi dai dai dai, didi hi dai dai dai, didi hi dai dai dai, dai dai. Thank you to Adina for sharing the words in the chat.
Thanks, Mark. That was beautiful. So we're continuing on page 6 with Psalm 96, Shir Adonai. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו, ספרו בגויים כבודו, בכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, נורא הוא כל האלוהים. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בסרו מיום ליום ישועתו. And we continue on page 7 with Yismachu. ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ, ירם הים ומלואו, יעלו שדי וכל אשר בו, אז ירננו כל עצי ים, לפני אדוני קיווה לשפוט הארץ. ישפוט תבל בצדק בעמים באמונתו. לחדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור בזכור בדיבורך, השמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד לשם ותפארת ולצילה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו במלאכה, כי מקום הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה. סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי שידברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Please rise if it is your custom. בואי בשלום עטרת בלק, גם בשמחה ובצולה תוך אמונה עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לחדותי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. And we continue with Mizmor Shir on page 9. I hope everyone's drinking enough water, by the way. Mizmor Shir ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות. עלי עשה ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וכינון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שימחתני אדוני בפועלך, ומעשה ידיך אדוני. גדלה מעשיך אדוני, ועמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. איש בעלתו ידע, וכסיל לא יבין את זאת, בפרוח רשעים כמו עשב, ויציתו כל פועלי אבן, להישמדם עד עד. ואתה מרום לעולם אדוני, כי הנה אויביך אדוני, כי הנה אויביך יאבדו יתפדו כל פועלי אבן. ותרם קירם קרני, בלותי בשמן רענן, ותבט עיני בשורי, בקמים עלי, מרעים תשמענה אוזני. צדיק כתמה יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמה יפרח, צדיק כתמה יפרח יפרח, צדיק כתמה יפרח, כארץ בלבנון יזכה, כארץ בלבנון יזכה, כארץ בלבנון יזכה יזכה, כארץ בלבנון יזכה, כארץ בלבנון יזכה, כארץ בלבנון יזכה יזכה. שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצות אלוהינו יפריחו, עוד יהנו בון בשיבה, תשנים ורננים יהיו. להגיד כי ישע אדוני, להגיד כי ישע אדוני צורי, ולא עוולתה בו. להגיד כי ישע אדוני, להגיד כי ישע אדוני צורי, ולא עוולתה בו. And we continue with the Baruch Hu.
And just before we come to the Baruch Hu, we have a meditation. And for the first bit of that, I'd like to invite Rebecca Rivka Granowski in Edinburgh, a member of, who's been a great advocate and supporter for LGBT plus rights and part of our community for many years. Rebecca, I sent you the words in the chat.
Oh, right, okay. Sorry. I can't find them.
May the Holy Presence.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, just got it. May the Holy Presence among us dwell among us, entering the hearts, homes, and workplace of all people everywhere, filling our lives with love, kindness, and compassion. May this happen soon while we yet live, and let us say Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rebecca.
And for the second paragraph, I'd like to hand over to Jennifer, the chair of BKY. And you may be muted. Are you able to unmute yourself there? There you go.
Let us praise the Holy Presence forever and ever and ever. We bless and we praise. But what it is that we bless and praise is beyond all blessing, beyond all comfort, deeper than our minds can reach, deeper than our hearts can touch.
Thank you. And if it's comfortable for you to do so, please stand for the Baruch Hu. Lai, la, lai, 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 lai. Lai, la, lai, 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 lai. Lai, la, lai, 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 la, lai, 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 lai. Lai, la, lai, 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Please be seated, and I'll hand over to Maya from Laviot.
Twilight People Prayer by Rabbi Reuben Zalman. As the sun sinks and the colors of the day turn, we offer a blessing for the twilight. For twilight is neither day nor night, but in between. We are twilight people. We can never be fully labeled or defined. We are many identities and loves, many genders and none. We are in between roles at the intersection of histories, or between place and place. We are crisscross paths of memory and destination. Streaks of light swell together. We are neither day nor night. We are both, neither and all. May the sacred in-between of this evening suspend our uncertainties, soften our judgments, and widen our vision. May this in-between light illuminate our way to the God who transcends all categories and definitions. May the in-between people who have come to pray be lifted up into this twilight. We cannot always define, we can always say a blessing. Blessed are you, God of all, who brings on the twilight.
Thank you. So we continue now, I believe, with Ahavat Olam. I would love to share this meditation with you, written by Rabbi Mark Solomon. In fact, maybe Rabbi Mark Solomon would like to share it with you himself. I'm more than happy to, but it's your word, so you get first dibs, Mark. You're still muted at the minute, I believe. Great.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, I wrote these words many years ago for the World Conference of LGBT Jews that took place in London in 1993. You gave us your Torah out of love, the Torah of life. But some of the words of the Torah do not give us life. Perhaps you did not say those words. They were put into your mouth by unwise men. Or perhaps they simply do not mean what men have said they mean. Your love is deeper than words, stronger than laws. Help us hold fast to your love and the words of life in your Torah.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadta, Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachbeinu, Uvkumeinu nasiach b'chukecha, V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, Uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, V'orech yameinu, Uvehem negei yomam v'layla, Yomam v'layla. V'ahavatcha, Al tasir mimanu l'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael.
Please cover your eyes for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Let me continue with למען תזכרו. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Turn now to page 15 in the booklet.
We hand over to Dahlia from Keshet, UK. I'll just unmute you there. Oops. There we go.
Thank you very much. This is by one of my favorite authors, Ivan Coyote. Sometimes it exhausts me, all the head shaking and stumbling around to navigate and negotiate the two-ring circus that is this gender binary, walking pronoun tightropes and balancing between my safety and someone else's comfort. You are free to call me trans, and I'm proud to lift this name up and hold it right there in the sun. And you would not be wrong, but this still feels like I'm borrowing a word from someone else, that it is not all the way mine, really. And my friend who lent it to me might need it back, or they might need it more than me. And really, these are just words, and words are always imperfect. Words are just sound we make with our mouths that point our minds to think of things that cannot be fully described in words anyway. I am a writer, so I know where words fail us. A name is not a person. It is just what we have agreed to call them.
Wow, thank you. That was really powerful. And now we're back to Rachel.
Thanks. Sorry about the delay. I was busy changing my my name so that my pronoun is on my my screen, which I encourage people to do. Okay, so this is a Micha Mocha that I wrote. I hope you like it. I don't generally write music, but when I do, it sounds a little bit like this. I'm not sure what's going on with the Sidurim, but the words are saying, "Who is like you? Who is like you, God? Who is like you, Eternal One?" And I'm going to do a shortened version of it, I think, because of time. But I hope that you'll pick it up and sing this prayer with me.
ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גיא ישראל.
Thank you, Rachel. This is so beautiful for us with the piano. I think many of us have missed out on pianos these last few months. And yeah, you've just brought so much beauty to us. I'm aware of the clunkiness of Zoom. I'm aware of the patience that you all have to have as a community, waiting for us to move between each other. But on the other hand, this is an extraordinary moment where people literally from all over can gather together using this. I'm now going to ask Peggy, a member of FPS, to read the English translation of Hashkivenu. But just before she does, I feel so struck by this prayer at the moment, this prayer that we add just in the evening after the Shema, the prayer that calls for safety, security, a sukkot shalom, a shelter of peace, and hopes that we will be safe from famine, from distress, from bigotry, that will be looked after. And I feel tonight that this prayer really reminds us also of allyship, that it isn't just God that we hope keeps everyone safe, but there is a sense of privilege and responsibility for those of us to look after each other when we need it. And I think that Hashkivenu tonight feels like it's all about allyship, all about the privilege to stand alongside and to make the world bigger, more inclusive. And I think this service is just one example of that sense of pride. So Peggy, I can ask you to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Let us lie down in peace, beloved, and let us rise up to life. Spread over us the canopy of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel and save us for your name's sake. Be a shield to us and remove from us bigotry, hatred, sickness, trouble, and grief. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you are a friend who protects and delivers us, full of grace and compassion. Watch over us when we come out and when we come in, for enduring life and peace. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Blessed are you, divine presence, spreading a canopy of peace over us and over all the world.
Baruch atah Adonai hapores sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al kol ha'olam. Thank you, Peggy.
Turn to the Shamaru, which comes just before the Amidah. The transliteration is in the chat column for those who want to use that. This is a tune by Debbie Friedman. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם, ברית עולם, ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם, ברית עולם, ברית עולם.
And we continue with the Amidah on page 18. Please rise either in body or spirit.
Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. Ha'el hagadol hagibor v'hanora, El Elyon, gomel chasadim tovim v'konei hakol, v'zocheh chasdei avot v'imaot, u'mevi go'el livnei v'neihem, l'man shemo b'ahava, melech ozeh u'moshiach u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham u'foked Sarah.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטף. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, קדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. You made the seventh day holy to your name, as the end and purpose of the creation of heaven and earth. You blessed it above all other days and made it holy above all other times. So it is written in your Torah. ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, רצה במנוחתנו. קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך. סבנו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך. ותהל ליבנו לעובדך באמת. והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון. שבת קודשך, וינוחו וישראל, מקדשי שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
רוצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל, תפילתם שעה, וברחמך הרבים, תחפוץ בנו ותשרה שכינתך על ציון, ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, המחזיר שכינתו לציון. מודים אנחנו לך, שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו לעולם ועד. צורנו, צור חיינו, ומגן ישנו, אתה הוא. לדור ודור נודה לך ונספר תהילתך, על חיינו המסורים בידיך, ועל נשמותינו הפקודות לך, ועל ניסיך שבכל יום עמנו, ועל נפלותיך וטובותיך שבכל עת, ערב ובוקר וצהריים, הטוב כי לא חלו רחמך, המרחם כי לא תמו חסדיך, כי מעולם קווינו לך. And we turn over the page to Al Hanissim.
Sing the first bit. The Al Hanissim is normally inserted in the Amidah for Chanukah and Purim, as we remember the wonders and the miracles performed for our ancestors. And this is an Al Hanissim that was written for pride by Rabbi Ayelet Cohen, I believe. But we start with the traditional words, giving thanks for the wonders that have brought us freedom. Al hanissim ve'al hapurkan ve'al hagvurot ve'al hatshuot ve'al hamilchamot she'asita lavoteinu bayamim hahem bazman hazeh. Al hanissim ve'al hapurkan ve'al hagvurot ve'al hatshuot ve'al hamilchamot she'asita lavoteinu lekadmoneinu bayamim hahem bazman hazeh.
We thank you for the wonderful deliverance, for the heroism and for the victorious struggles for those before us in days gone by and in our time. In the wake of the civil rights movement, gay men and lesbians, bisexuals and transgender, intersex and gender variant people began to organize for the dignity and justice each of us is due as human beings on this earth. Those who profane your name, claiming that they hate us in the name of God, rose up to criminalize us, pathologize us, brutalize us, and erase us. But you, in your great mercy, stood with us in the time of our troubles. You fought alongside us, vindicated us, gave us the courage to stand together, to open our eyes and the eyes of the world around us, to see that freedom and the right to love belongs to all your creations. You have given us the strength to witness and create wonders, to be who we are and to love whom we love, not only in the safety of home, but outside in the light of the world, to live as Jews in the embrace of community, to sanctify our unions and celebrate ourselves before each other and before you.
Evenu masu habonim hayeta l'rosh pinah. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. V'lo nevosh v'lo nikalem leolam va'ed. May we never know shame again.
You're muted, student Rabbi Anna.
That's better. And for all these things, may your name, Eternal One, be blessed, exalted, and honored forever and ever. May every living being thank you. May they praise and bless your great name in truth. For you are the God who saves and helps us. Blessed are you, eternal God, known as goodness, whom it is right to praise. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lecha na'eh lehodot. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, Tasim leolam. Ki atahu melech adon, lochol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon, L'chol hashalom, shalom rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. Shalom rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael. B'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
And we carry on with Oseh Shalom at the bottom of page 24.
Oseh Shalom bimroman, hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu. Yisrael va'al kol ha'olam ve'imru Amen.
So we've reached the portion of the service where we will say a blessing for healing, say a Misha Beirach, the prayer for healing, and in it I invite us to pray for healing of ourselves, for queer healing, and for the healing of people that we know that may be ill, either in body or mind or spirit, or any other way. And if you would like to put the names of the people that you might want to keep in mind throughout the course of this prayer, please do write them in the chat at any point. I think it will be too confusing to read them all out, so I apologize, but please know that saying their names is a powerful thing in a community like this, so thank you. So the Misha Berach that I'm going to sing honors to gay, queer, lesbian ancestors of mine, Debbie Friedman and Adrian Cooper. This is Debbie Friedman's Misha Beirach, translated into Yiddish by Adrian Cooper and Moshe Rosenfeld, and it was written for Debbie and Adrian to perform together in 2007.
Say gib uns Koyach, so benchen unsere heilige Teures, uns helfen haben Mut und benchen unser Lebens, the Neumann. Gib uns a Bruche, I avoiseinu, gebench sein deine Schomes, was neutigen und Refuschlemen, die Banayung von Gott, die Banayung von Nefesh, the Neumann.
So
I had on my thing Rachel to introduce Mark, but here he is.
I'm not sure that I need much introduction. Well, take me as introduced, I think. It's quite amazing to see so many people gathered together. It's always wonderful when we get together in person in shul for a service like this. But one of the benefits that we incidentally get from this terrible crisis that we're in, as we know, is that people can come together from far and wide who could never gather together on a Friday evening in London. So people from all around the country, maybe even beyond, but certainly from many different communities. And I think 156 screens, and on many of those there's more than one person, so we must have approaching 200 people here. This year is the strangest pride that perhaps we've ever known. No marches, no parties, and we can't even get together for a service physically. So perhaps just as this lockdown has been an opportunity for taking stock, for reassessing our priorities for many of us, so tonight we can do a little bit of taking stock as well. As we look around the world, and even here in our own country, there's a lot to worry us at the moment as LGBT plus people. We see what seems to be an ever hardening repression in Eastern Europe, in Russia, in large parts of Poland, in Chechnya, where there's been terrible violence towards LGBT people. But when we look in the other direction, over to the West, we see ongoing hostility, anti-trans rhetoric, especially from the US administration. Although, thankfully, the Supreme Court in the United States has intervened recently to rule that the anti-trans legislation that was proposed is illegal and unconstitutional. A little bit of relief. I saw the news today that in Gabon, a small African country, which last year voted to criminalize homosexuality, now, just today or yesterday, I think, they have voted to decriminalize homosexuality again. And so we see throughout the world, in these sorts of ways, an extraordinary ferment, a swinging of the pendulum from one extreme to the other, almost wherever we look. And even in this country, the government, until very recently, had been proposing and discussing a policy to improve the lives and the dignity of trans people by bringing in self-identification. But now, apparently, the government is proposing to drop this, to roll back on those proposed important reforms. As many of you will have seen, liberal Judaism, possibly the reform movement as well, but certainly liberal Judaism has issued a statement opposing this change of policy and upholding our strong support of trans rights and of the need to make it easier for trans people to live their lives in the gender of their identification as freely and as easily and with as much support from the whole of society as possible. Let's hope there's still time for this government to change its mind yet again. But I want to look inwards a little bit tonight into our own community, because there we see a distressing rift between different sections of the LGBT plus community and supporters. A rift between those who advocate for greater trans rights and inclusion, and some sections of the feminist and lesbian feminist community who seem to be setting their hearts against the expansion of trans rights out of a fear for the erosion of women's rights, a fear that many of us feel is misplaced, exaggerated, and misconceived, but nevertheless for some people feels like a real fear. Personally, I've always been convinced that the whole movement of LGBT liberation way back in the middle of the 20th century was built upon and could not have existed without women's liberation. Now isn't the time or place to expand on my reasons for feeling that as a gay man, I owe what rights, what freedom I have to those who fought for women's liberation, for that huge revolution of feminism, which has defined so much of our time. But it means that for me, this is an extraordinarily painful rift to see happening. Now, as a cis gay male, and therefore a relatively privileged person in all of this conversation, it would probably be wiser for me just to steer clear of this whole thing, because the pitfalls, as we know, are many and serious. But I don't feel I can stand by helplessly without a voice when it feels as though my own family is splitting up in terrible acrimony with people turning upon one another. Now, I want to try and approach this through a passage in our parashah this week, the portion of Chukat. I'm not a public activist. I'm not a Twitter warrior. I'm certainly not someone who makes policy. I'm a rabbi, and so I'm comfortable discussing the words of Torah, and I hope you'll go with me for a few minutes now as we look at something in our portion this week. The context of this is the death of Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Moses and Aaron, who dies in this week's parashah. And immediately afterwards, we read that the people had no water to drink. And they began complaining and murmuring, as they always do, against Moses and demanding water. God tells Moses, speak to the rock and it will bring forth water. But as we know, Moses didn't speak to the rock. He struck the rock. And yes, it did produce water for the thirsty people and their animals. But Moses himself is punished by being banned from entering the promised land because he showed such misplaced anger and rage against the people who were just thirsty, who just needed water. And he addressed them as rebels. Now, rabbinic tradition tells us that the well of water had accompanied the people throughout their wanderings in the wilderness all these 40 years through the merit of Miriam. The merit of Miriam. So it's called Miriam's well, the Eirah Shel Miriam. And when Miriam dies in this week's parashah, the rabbis note that there is not a single word about the people weeping for Miriam. When Aaron dies, also in this week's parashah, the people weep. When Moses dies later on, the people weep. Why don't they weep for Miriam? And it's because they don't weep for Miriam. They don't shed tears for the death of this great female leader and prophetess. We're told that's why the well dried up, the well of Miriam, and they had no water. They didn't show appreciation, acknowledgement of the leadership, of the female leadership that Miriam had given. So Moses had to bring the water back again. And okay, he did it the wrong way by striking the rock, but the water came back for the people. And then we find passages often neglected where the people sing to this well, to the well of Miriam that has opened up again after being shut off when Miriam died and they didn't weep for her. And I want to share with you the text of this passage, and I hope I will be able to share my screen. Can I share my screen? Not sure if I can. Leah, am I able to share my screen? If not, it doesn't matter. I'll simply tell you what it says. I can't see the sharing button there. So it says, from there they continued to Be'er. That is the well of which the Eternal One said to Moses, gather the people together and I will give them water. Then Israel sang this song, spring up, O well, sing to it. The well that the leaders sank, that the nobles of the people dug with the scepter, with their staffs. And then it continues from the wilderness to Matana, which is usually understood as the next stage of the journey from the wilderness to somewhere called Matana. But the rabbis point out that Matana means gift, from the wilderness, a gift. I want to look closely at the words of this song. Rise up, O well, respond to it. The first well opened up 40 years before with Miriam's leadership, when Miriam led the people together with Moses in singing at the Red Sea, singing in thanks for God's deliverance and the splitting of the waters. And there back at the Red Sea, it said, Miriam sang and said, Moses sang and said. But here the rabbis point out, there's no mention of Moses. It just says, the Israelites sang this song. Israel sang this song. This is a new generation, a generation that has grown up in the wilderness. They didn't experience that first liberation from Egypt, those early heady days of liberation when they were led by Miriam. This is a new generation that has grown up in the wilderness. They need to seek their own liberation because liberation always needs to be renewed from generation to generation. The liberation led by Miriam might not be the same liberation that is needed now, the same source of water. Some of you at the Liberal Judaism Biennial will have heard Rabbi Eli Tikva speak about Miriam as a queer woman, as a lesbian, and the leadership that she gave as a woman proud and independent, leading the women in their search for freedom. But now a new song needs to be sung, a new freedom needs to be sought. And so we find that the people are told, respond to this well with a new song. It was first dug out by those leaders back then, by Moses, by Miriam. But then we read that it needs to be dug also by the Nedivei Am, Nedivei, traditionally translated as nobles, but Nadiv means to be generous, to be open-hearted. The generous-hearted people need to round out this well, to dig it anew. And then there are two words for the staff, mechokek and mishemet. Mechokek relates to firm rules, to firm principles that need to be laid down, clear and necessary guidelines, like don't misgender one another, Don't deny one another's identity. Don't stand in the way of one another's safety or one another's freedom. My safety should not negate your freedom, and your freedom does not threaten my safety. But at the same time as these clear rules that need to be laid down to dig out the well anew, there is also the mishanotam, a different word for a staff, which means something that you lean on, something that you depend upon. You don't just have to have the clear rules, you also need to be able to lean on one another, to learn from one another, and to listen and respond to one another. And only when you do that will you receive that gift from the wilderness. Now we seem to be traveling through a wilderness full of confusion. But I hope that if we can dig out that well anew with clear rules, but also supporting and affirming one another and listening to one another, we'll be able to get that gift from the wilderness to discover ever more of our freedom. Amen.
Now we turn to the concluding prayers, and there's an alternative paragraph that we have for the Aleinu, especially for Pride, from the Sidur Sha'ar Zahav from a congregation in LA. And I hand over to Kathy from FPS, the chair, I believe, the chair of FPS, to read that for us. Sorry, Kathy, are you muted there? Let's just find you.
Unmute. That's fine. Shall I start again?
Go for it, thank you.
Okay, I'll start again. Let us praise the ruler of the universe and adore the creator of the world, who did not make us like other nations, who created us different from other people and set us on a separate path towards a special destiny. Sometimes we feel excluded because we are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer identified or straight, Jewish or non-Jewish, female or male, old or young, or disabled. We conceal the unique attributes with which we are created in God's image. May God strengthen our inner resolve to honour and fulfil our unique purpose, to live our God's wonderful and unknowable design, in which each one of us is a vital participant. Therefore, we bow in reverence before the Supreme Ruler, the Holy One, who is to be blessed.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm going to hand over to David.
I'm just going to jump in there, actually, before David reads Reflection and Kaddish, to invite all those who would like to add names of those you are remembering this evening. We think of all those who have lost their lives within this community. We think particularly last week of those three men, James Furlong, David Wales, Joe Ritchie Bennett, who lost their lives but who were so clearly part of the LGBT plus community. We think of the pain and the loss and the grief that has been in this community. Share names so that we can feel ourselves part of a community.
David, you're unmuted. Sorry, muted.
Okay. Right. If you want to stand for the memorial prayer, and if you want to write any names in chat, anyone who you are mourning this week or this month, or whom you are thinking of. And on page 26, the Mourners Kaddish in English, we remember all who were dear to us and who have died. As we hold all our memories, the sweet and the bitter, we think of the richness and diversity of their lives, the legacy of knowledge, wisdom, and love they bequeathed to us, and we rejoice in the remembrance of all that we shared. We remember the many millions who were murdered by the perpetrators of hatred, persecution, and bigotry of all kinds. All those who were murdered whilst wearing a yellow star or a pink triangle. All who were snatched from us before their time through HIV, AIDS, and other illnesses, diseases, and viruses. And all those who were lost to us through suicide, accident, or other sudden tragedy. We remember that death is a common experience that knows no boundaries, linking us to our ancestors, uniting us with all Jews, all LGBTQIA people, and the family of mankind, humankind across the face of all the earth. We remember them all tonight and say Kaddish also for all those who have no one else to recite Kaddish for them. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, וילמד יברח חילותי וימליך מלכותי, וחיוכון ויומכון, וחייתי כל בית ישראל, ועגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, ימירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל העולם ואמרו אמן. Please be seated.
May their memories be for a blessing and a source of comfort and strength. And I believe we are finishing with our closing hymn, unless I'm informed otherwise. We'll join together in Adon Olam on page 28.
Adon Olam Hashem alach b'terem kol yetzi nivra ve'eit nasa kechef zakol azay melech shemo nikra va'acharei ki yichlot hakol leva'ado yimloch nora v'hu haya v'hu hava v'hu yeh בצפרה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשלו להחבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמזרח והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצוחק לי ביום צרה והוא נשיא ומנוסלי מנקוסי ביום אקרא בידו אבקיד רוחי בעת אישן ויהירה ועם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all who organised this and contributed, especially Rabbi Rebecca Birk, student Rabbi Anna Posner, Rabbi Mark Solomon. I can't think of everybody's names in this moment, but love and appreciation to everybody who put this together. And I think we're doing Kiddush now. Am I right about that? Great.
Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Who's on? Lima.
Rebecca, I wonder if you could lead us in Kiddush as the hosting rabbi. We're over the page.
Yeah. Hold on, we're not on the page anymore. So let us go there to see. Well, we're just going to start halfway through. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'yahavav ratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'maaseh bereshit ki hu yom tehila lemikra kodesh zecher yat mitzrayim kivanu v'harta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha v'yahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. So we'll just lift up our halot. I'm here with parents and family, and Dora will help me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Dora, you look lovely.
Shabbat shalom.